for joining us. We are happy to see everyone, and I'm glad that you're here. And I wanted to talk to you guys about something, and I'll ask you. I'm not going to ask everyone because it takes a lot of time, but I will. I'll ask a couple of you your thoughts on on. I just have a question, and Sister Ann Matthews. Um, what is important to you for you to get out of a Bible study? What's important to you mostly? It could be a couple things, but what's the most important thing that you feel like I need to get this from a Bible study?
I mean, understanding what the speaker is saying about the study, understanding the Bible, what sometimes, although you said it's just one thing, but it's just getting the words, getting what the speaker is trying to put forward.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we're looking for what what is they're trying to provide to us for us to understand that day or that time. Um, Brother John, what do you think? What's important to you in a Bible study that that you should come away from or come away with?
For me, I like to, what does the Bible speak to me? Reading the Bible and studying the Bible are two different things. What does it teach me? Out of that, do I learn? What I should change? Because the Bible should change me. I should not change the Bible.
Hmm.
That's my perspective. That's why I'll go word,
Yes.
word by word, verse by verse, and try to understand.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I mean, we don't want to try to change the Bible. It should try to change us, right? And I just ask Portia, what do you think is important about what you need to get from a Bible study?
Basically, what mom and dad said that Bible study is supposed to be, because when I was younger, I never really got why we had to go to church on Sunday morning, sometimes Sunday night, Wednesday. Like we always go on Sunday morning. What's the point? And what mom and dad told me was that it was about Sunday is for us and for maybe guests or something. It's the initial studying or learning of the word, but Bible study is a more intimate way of learning about God and what he does, and we're able to sit with literally just other believers and spending time with each other so that we can just switch different points of view and then get a
Yeah,
closer look at the word.
yeah, definitely, definitely. We all have like some different perspectives, but we come to a common ground. We want to walk away from a Bible study with something new, right? Something that we've learned. And I was thinking today, what are some of the goals we get out of this? Is it just because we want to sit here on Wednesday nights and say we did it, right? I think it's a little more than that. I think it's more than just writing, and saying, yeah, we went to Bible study, we did this. But I think it's important for us to sit, to think about it like, to learn something new. What can we get out of this Bible study? What can I learn from this topic, from this Bible verse, from this chapter, from this character, and also to be challenged, and not everything feels good. A lot of times when you'll, I'm not hating on them or anything, but a lot of times you'll see ministers and evangelists and different people because they're trying to gather as many people as possible, and it'll just give you a feel good moment. Okay, that's great, but sometimes we need a little chastisement, don't we? We just need to be told the truth. Tell me the truth so I don't jump in the fire. If I touch the stove, I'm going to get burned. It's not because you're mean to me, it's because it's danger there, right? And the other thing we could learn from Bible study is that we explore our thoughts. You guys have a different thought about something than I do. You might have a different theology on how you see something, or a perspective that is different from mine. Does that mean all of us are wrong or all of us are right? Not really, but that's kind of the fun part about what we do is we're engaging. We're trying to figure out, oh, what was that person thinking? And then we're like, wow, I would have thought about it this way. I would have done this. Or why didn't he believe that? Or why did, and they're like, well, maybe I wouldn't have believed it either. So there's something that we can explore, together and bring our thoughts together. And the last thing for me is important is to leave encouraged, to leave like, well, that was worth my hour or whatever. I didn't waste my time. And sometimes, we shouldn't think that way, but if we had Bible study every Wednesday and we offered, cotton candy and hot dogs and balloons and everything, we'd get a few more people to show up, right? We probably would. We've done it. We've had cookouts on Wednesday nights and there'd be 1,000 people there, right? But the next week, not as many, not even half. Is that they're not terrible people. It's just what it is. But here we go. We gather because we want something more. We're trying to figure out something that we need. This is our life. Someone said, about my job that I do. They were talking about, oh, you have another job? Like, oh yeah, well, it's not a job. It's my life. Church is my life. It's who I am. It's not really, it's my relationship with God, right? It's not just because I'm a part of an organization. It's more than that. And sometimes people would just put a number on that. And I think it's a lot more. I think that's why we keep coming back. I've spent too much time on it. I just wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts for just a moment on how you feel and what you'd like to get out of a Bible study. So we're doing a series right now. Last week, we talked about Abraham, right? And our little series I come up with was called Waiting for the Waymaker. Kind of catchy, but kind of corny. I don't know. I'm using it. It's fine. Probably. So tonight, we're going to talk about another very familiar character in the Bible. And this individual's name is Joseph. Everybody remember Joseph from the Old Testament? He was the son of Jacob. We're going to talk about Joseph tonight. We're talking about waiting, when God has us to wait a lot of times when we're waiting for good things to happen. We know that his promises are with us and we have some goals and dreams and things. So we're going to talk about Joseph and it's not going to be finished tonight because I tell you, if you get into these things too deep, man, you'll never get out. You'll never finish. And it will take you months. So I'm trying not to get too far in, but I don't want to leave too much out either. So it'll probably take a couple weeks for us to try to get something out of our buddy Joseph tonight. So let me just give you a little introduction. You guys like a good mystery movie, a good suspense movie where you don't know what's going to happen, but it just got you on the edge of your seat and you're just into it and you're just watching it. A great director will often set up the movie with a foreshadow. At the beginning of it, she'll give you just a little bit of information that won't make sense right there, but they want you to get a visual of that for later on. But it doesn't make sense right away. Maybe they'll show a visual or show some kind of an object, or maybe a certain individual, or maybe someone will drop something like a piece of evidence. Maybe a knife or a gun will get dropped or something like that. Well, we don't know why, but we've been given through the movie, through the director, a foreshadow for that moment, but we won't understand it till later on. So, like I said, we're doing this series about waiting on the Waymaker, and a lot of times in the Bible, it will give us like a foreshadow of something to come, but we don't know why. We just know that later on, it'll make sense to us. Sometimes when we are waiting, things can often go south, can get more hard, more difficult than expected. And the test and the trials that we have, can be really hard, right? It's hard to understand why. So tonight, as we talk, we're going to talk about Joseph. We're going to talk about his coat. We're going to talk about his dreams. And we're going to talk about him waiting, having to wait and going through a lot of different situations. We won't be able to hit everything because we don't have that much time, but we're going to try to hit some good points, and hopefully we'll learn something new, and we'll get challenged ourselves and come away encouraged. So let me ask you, what do you know about Joseph? I'm going to open up the floor for just maybe 2 minutes or less. What do you guys know about Joseph? And all of you know something. Yes.
He was a lot more forgiving than I probably would have been in his situation.
That's a good point. Yeah, probably more forgiving than any of us would ever be.
Favorite son?
He was. That's right. That'll get you in trouble too.
I know.
What else do you know about Joseph?
Very faithful.
Very faithful. Anyone else want to add something?
Joseph, he got thrown into prison after he was sold into slavery. And then when he came out of prison, he was able to interpret the Pharaoh's dreams and was able to make things better for Egypt. That seemed so unlikely. He was in prison. He was almost supposed to be killed. And yet God still spared him and had a purpose for him, even though he was stuck in jail. He had a plan for him.
Yeah, well, we're done, Steph. Let's just go and hang it up. We're finished with our Bible study. But yeah, that's it. You guys all know the story of Joseph. So I asked you some, what do you want to get out of a Bible study? It's like, well, Brother Dave, we know so much about Joseph. Isn't that like elementary, Sunday school stuff? It is. But it's also very important to each one of us when we're having to wait. We can always kind of, relate to certain things that happen, can't we? Not to that severity of what happened to him, but we can always kind of relate to some things that happen in our own lives. And that's what I want us to try to pinpoint. So you guys touched on a number of things about him. So Jacob, I gave my answer already. So Joseph was the son of Jacob, right? One of the 12. Joseph was the favorite. I think somebody mentioned that. He was a favorite because his father had him at an older age, right? He just loved him. He had specific dreams. He had some dreams that come to him.
Yeah.
He was a hard worker. He was faithful, I believe somebody mentioned. And he had great leadership skills. And he had the favor of God. So there's a lot of things that Joseph had. And we're going to touch on a few things, but the first thing I want us to look at is the gift from his father. So Joseph got a gift from his father, right? And we call it a coat of many colors, right? So if you want to follow along, go to Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37, and we're going to read verse 3 and 4. And we'll just come back and forth to this chapter as we go through this today. So Genesis chapter 37, verse 3 says, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him." Let me stop there for a second. Let me stop there. So now let me ask real quick, do you think this was really the first time that Jacob showed favoritism? It showed that Joseph was his favorite. You think maybe a birthday party somewhere, he might have had a bigger birthday present? You think maybe he got his favorite food more than the other youngins? Do you think that they kind of noticed this stuff? You think this was like, well, that was it. He got a coat. I think there was maybe some progress to that moment, right? Where some other things have happened. Sometimes in life, we get some buildup, right? It's not like, when you lose your, what do they call it, lose your temper, when you blow your top, when things go kind of crazy, and it's not over it's over a little thing like a coat. It's not because it's that one thing. It might be a number of things that kind of just be built up. Maybe your boss just gave you 50 things, and on the 50th thing, you just had enough, right? You're like, this is it. I'm going to and you just go crazy, and everybody thinks you're nuts. You're not nuts. It's not because of that one thing. It was a number of things that kind of added up. And so I think, and this is one of those things where we explore our thoughts, and it's not written anywhere, but maybe there is something there where it was just kind of build up. And giving him a coat was like, good gracious, Dad, why you going to give him that too? And it was just something that kind of put him over the top when it was regarding their precious brother Joseph. Let me read on. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. So they hated him when they realized their father loved him more. So let's just discuss this for just a little bit. And you guys, just interrupt me and unmute yourself and say if you want to jump in there. I'm kind of looking back and forth here. So Jacob, actually in this verse, it calls him Israel. So Israel is used here. He gave Joseph a coat of significance, a favor, symbolizing his love for Joseph, right? Now, there's an author and minister, a preacher named Chuck Swindoll. You guys ever heard of Charles Swindoll? I'm sure you have. Well, he has a book out called Joseph, a Man of Integrity and Forgiveness. I think somebody mentioned that. I think Portia said something about how he was able to forgive, which would be really difficult in that situation. So he said in his book, he said, by giving Joseph this elaborate full-length coat, which was also a sign of nobility in that day, his father was boldly implying that you can wear this beautiful garment because you don't have to work like your other brothers. You don't have to do as much. It's kind of like giving him like a free pass, right? But let me look at it this way, because this is a physical coat that he got. But I want to bring to the table something a little bit different I've been thinking about. Joseph wore many different coats. You ever heard somebody say he wears different hats? If Brother Gale is here, he wears different hats. Sometimes he's a mechanic hat. Sometimes he's a church deacon, counselor. He has a different hat on. Joseph has a coat of many colors, but he has many coats. He has a coat of favor. Remember a few years ago, we used to sing a song, and we have favor too. We used to sing a song that was taught to me, "The favor of the Lord is upon me." And Joseph had a coat of favor. He also had a coat of blessing, right? He had a coat of blessing. He had a coat on of leadership. Throughout his life, he was promoted, right? We're going to get to some of those things later. He was promoted in high regard and given positions of leadership. He had a coat of leadership, and he also had a coat of promise. Those coats you can't take off someone. We're going to get to that in a little bit. You might be able to take the coat physically off of me, but you can't take my destiny away from me, right? You can't take what God has promised from me. You can't remove the dream that God has put in me, the purpose that he's given me. Yeah, you can take my coat of many colors and tear it up. I wear many coats, right? We wear many coats. God has redeemed us. We have a coat of redemption. We have a coat of forgiveness. We have a coat of salvation. We have a coat of healing on us. We have a coat of blessing, right? It's not a physical coat. Yeah, you take this coat off me. Let's go back to our our chapter here, verse 30 or chapter 37, verse 6. Let's just move on. Verse 6 says, he said to them, listen to this dream I had. Now he's telling his brothers this. This was kind of I don't know, not a smart move. I don't think. But so he said, listen to them, or listen to the dream I had. Now I'm going to read it a few different ways, okay? Now you guys look how I read and see if there's some different ways I should have maybe not read it. So he said to them, listen to the dream I had. Or he said to them, listen to the dream I had. Or he said, listen to this dream I had. So there's different ways that maybe he brought it up to them and kind of gave it to them in different ways. He could have said, listen to this dream I had. And it wouldn't have been that big of a deal, maybe. Maybe it would have just, okay. But if he said, listen to this dream I had. It's a different way of saying it, right? So verse 7. He said in the dream, we were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. How many of you can remember the last dream you had? You can remember the last dream you had? Maybe last night, maybe this morning early. Now, if we all was to sit around and say, tell me the last dream that you had, they're all going to be different dreams, right? They're not all going to be the same ones. Some of them are going to be silly. Some of them are going to be terrifying. Some of them are going to be important. You know, when I was a teenager, I had a great dream. You guys tell me if this was a dream that was significant or a dream of importance. So I dreamed when I was about 14 or 15 that I got to play professional basketball with Magic Johnson. It was great. It was a great dream. I'm like, wow, I made it. And all I had to do was shoot the ball. I didn't have to dribble because I didn't have to do anything. Just shoot it and it went in every time. It's like, oh, this amazing white kid from West Virginia can hit these shots. He's on our team. Now, you know, that's not realistic. If I live off that dream, it's not important because it doesn't mean anything. So we have dreams that don't mean anything. Then we have dreams that will stick with you, right? You ever had a dream that kind of like God gave you a dream or he woke you up from a dream and you're like this or that? I've dreamed of playing the piano. And this is true of waking up. In my dream, I was playing how to play the piano. I didn't play that way yet. I would wake up from the dream and go to the piano and I would play the same thing that was in my dream. Now that was kind of maybe you think weird, but to me it's like, wow, it worked. Something I believe that God gave me something in my dream to kind of help me learn how to play music and how to do that. Because I was a lot of times you learn on your own and you're like, how do they do that? Because so many people are so talented. And sometimes God will bring you things to you when you're dreaming. And I think it's important to realize was a significant dream that Joseph had. This was not, you know, too much pizza. You know, it's not like one of those dreams. This was a dream of importance that God was giving him revelation, prophesying to him through this dream that this is what's going to happen. Now, I'm not so sure why he had to go and run and tell his brothers. But they weren't ready for that. Let's just say that, okay? They weren't ready for that. And sometimes, even with our own dreams, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes people aren't ready for you to share everything. And I've been learning this the hard way sometimes is don't share every good thing that you have in your mind that God has given you, because everybody can hear it and not everybody's for it. And not everybody understands it. But God gave Joseph a dream. We have to understand that dreams are important to us, but sometimes we just got to hold on to them and with God and maybe, you know, your spouse or whoever is really close to you, and so that they can understand and believe with you and see those things come to pass, because God gave them to you. But things didn't go well after his dream, did it? Things didn't go well after he told his brothers about the dreams. You know, a lot of times when you have something good that happens to you, you ever been like in a really a good service, or you've been ministered to, or somebody gave you a word, or you've been reading your Bible and God just touched you with something and promised you something, or you just believe this is a gift, a ministry, this is something that God has given me, and you just are so excited about it, right? It's something that you believe is going to happen, and you got this promise, and you got this dream, and this is going to be you, and you feel good about it. Things don't go well after that sometimes. A lot of times, as soon as you walk out the church door and get into your car and go back home, the next day you can find out that you don't have a job anymore. Or somebody's told something on you, or something has happened in your family, or something is you know, whatever that is, some kind of a problem. Maybe your car broke down, anything like that. You're feeling good. You got a promise from God. You just came out of a revival, and you just got blessed in an amazing way, and you're encouraged and ready to go. And just like that, as soon as you get home that week, something's happened to you, and you just get thrown into a pit. So let's go on down to verse 17, middle of 17 and verse 18. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. Now they didn't kill him, right, because of Reuben. But let's go on down to verse 23. It says, so when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into a cistern. So they stripped him of his coat. Now remember earlier, I think I talked about this. You can take my coat that you think is significant. You can rip it and strip it off of me, but you can't strip off my destiny. You can't take away the promises that God has already given us, right? Each one of us have been given promises, have been given blessing and favor and salvation and healing. You can't take those things. You can take this coat, but you can't take who I am. God gives you his word, right? He gives you a word. He gives you his promises. He gives you everything in the Bible. The enemy will try and strip that from you and me. Try to take your blessing. Even though the coat was gone from Joseph, he was still destined to reach the dream that God's plan was for him, that God planned for him, right? So Joseph's brothers, they throw him in a pit. Then they end up selling him to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. And he didn't see that coming. He didn't see it coming. Can anyone tell me why he didn't see this coming from his brothers? How could he not see? I'll open up the floor. How could he not see that his brothers were kind of having odd against him? You can tell if somebody don't really like you, can't you? A lot of times you can. Not sometimes you can't. People are good at it, but a lot of times you can know if you have somebody in your office that you work with, and you know pretty quick if they don't like you or not. I had a coworker years ago. She was actually my supervisor, and she seriously tried to get me fired a couple times. She was an atheist, and of course, sometimes you talk too much about God and or what you do, and not everybody likes that. Not everybody likes to hear what your story is. So this girl, she was nice in front of my face, but behind my back, she was going to my her higher up manager and tell him, he can't do this job. You need to get rid of him. And she wasn't training me either. Like, why ain't this girl training me? She's supposed to train me so she could go and do another job or do something else. So I get pulled in to his office. I think I've told this before. I'll go quickly, but I go into his office and he tells me what's going on. I didn't know that she was talking and telling me all these things. So she's telling me, you're doing fine. Everything's great. You're going to be ready in just a few weeks. I'm going to leave, because I think she was leaving for another job, but she didn't like me and she didn't want me to have that job. So he was going on. He said, okay, I don't want to fire you. She wants me to fire you. She wants me to get rid of you today. And she had me like doing all these weird like jobs, and I'm like, why am I shredding papers? Shouldn't I be learning this job? And I wasn't quick enough on my feet back then to really realize what she was trying to set me up for failure. But he told me, you have a really good attitude, and you're what this hotel needs, but your background isn't in this department. You need to go back down in front of people, and you need to go to the front office. And so he promoted me to an assistant front office manager. She didn't know that. So she thought I was fired. So I go back into the office, and she looked at me like she thought, well, he's going to get his paperwork and go on home, get his book bag and his lunchbox and go home. And she said, everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I just got promoted. I'm going to be working at the front office as a manager. How do you think she saw that? She's like, my goodness. I tried to throw him in the pit, right? She tried to throw me in the pit. It backfired, but I didn't see it coming. I'm not sure how Joseph didn't see this coming. He went after his brothers, right? He found out where they were, and they were, watching over his father's sheep. He's going there with his brothers. They see him and like, we're just going to kill this guy. It's just their own brother. He didn't even see it coming. He had all this dreams and things and this stuff that's happening to him. And yet it turned on him in a second. All these promises of what to come for him. And he ends up in a pit. And then later on, he is sold into slavery, right? How did he not know? You guys want to give any quick comment on that? How did he not know that his brothers would not want to be around him? I don't know.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Pastor. Okay, he loves his brother, and then as Portia said earlier on, he's forgiving, and he wants to be a part of his brothers. His brothers doesn't like him. He knows that, but you know how sometimes we know that people don't like us, but we still want whatever we want them to, whether accept us or what, we'll do anything for them. They don't like us, but that doesn't say we don't like them. Right. And we'll do anything. Sometimes they show that they don't like us. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're all up while they're planning, just like how that lady was planning to get you fired. That's the same thing with his brothers. They were planning to kill him because, one, their father loves him. Two, he dreams and say that they're going to bow down to him. So there are other things that is causing them not to like him. Well, he's not seeing that those are the things that are hurting him, right, are hurting them.
Yeah, he wanted him to accept it, like take it. This is who I am. But they weren't ready for that.
No, they didn't want that.
Where'd you go? Go ahead, Pastor.
Well, I think one of the things is like there's a couple of things that this story that I think is kind of important. I think that maybe he may not have expected it, but he definitely knew it was possibility. Like if you read Genesis 34, when it talks about when their sister was taken advantage of, how the brothers went up and basically burned the city to the ground. And how when he was even telling his dreams and visions, I was trying to see if I could find it. And his father was like, "Do you think you're better than me?" You know, like I think that Joseph may not have been expecting it at that moment, but obviously there was also a difference because Joseph and Benjamin's mother was the beloved, right? She was the one, she was the beloved. And I know that there's a couple of us on this call who are not only children, Portia, sorry. But like Brother John says that he's the favorite child in his family. And you know, I'm sure Stephanie is, and Brother Ormsby and Sister Ormsby are. But you know, yeah. Well, I mean, like, and Brother Dave, I mean, there were 4 of you guys. And so, you know, my older sister is the one who knows everything that's going on with my mom and dad. Always. She always knows. And it's like, well, why, how come I don't know all this different stuff? But that being said is, if Joseph may have not expected it, but he didn't know they weren't capable of it. You know, and I think that's a very important part of the story, because, I mean, it doesn't say, I mean, am I correct? I was trying to see if I could find the story of where the reason why Reuben was on the bad side of his father is because he had sex with one of his concubines. I believe that's in 35, but I can't seem to find Genesis 35, but I can't seem to find it. Anyway, but so Reuben would have saved Joseph because he didn't want to be on his
The bad
father's
side.
bad side.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So,
Wasn't because he liked Joseph so much.
Right. He was just like, hey, look, I saved your beloved son.
Right.
And so, you know, and then it goes on. I think in 28 is where Judah marries a Canaanite woman. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about that. But yeah, I think that he may have
It's a
been
chance.
surprised, but he knew they were capable. I mean, I think that's a very important point. So I'm done.
It's a good point. That's a good.
By the way, I'm so glad my camera started working again.
Yeah, it was great. It's great. So, thank
I
you.
also think, Brother Dave, that
Yes.
there's a bit of good and evil working against Joseph. While you know, Joseph was one of the youngest, so it's highly possible that he was not mature enough to understand and handle the anger that the siblings were showing. As far as Joseph was seeing, he was just one of the brothers and wanted, as Sister Anne said, wanted to be one of the kids in the family. And so in spite of the bad things that was happening to him, or even the bad vibes that he was getting from his brothers, he was trying to be part of them. He has that forgiving nature. The good nature is in him. And so he was always trying to forgive and overlook some of the things because of the love that he had. And when you truly have God's love, you overlook the bad things that other people do, because your prayer and your desire is to love others like Christ loves you. And that's highly possible that that's what Joseph was doing. He had the innocence on his side, and he also had the good on his side. The brothers were older, they knew more, and they also had the evilness in their lives. And that's the conflict that you see and the difference that you see in the two of them, in the two groups, if you will.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Joseph's brothers, they could not accept this from their little brother, right? They knew him way too well. They thought they did, but they really didn't know. Not yet, anyway. Remember I talked to you about a foreshadow? So the dream that we see in the early part of this chapter is kind of a foreshadow of things to come. But they weren't ready to receive that yet. They're like, nah, man, you're not going to tell me how we're going to bow down before you and all this. They weren't ready for that, you know? It's funny because I think Pastor mentioned about, you know, how, you know, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town. He probably knew everything about Joseph, you know, every time he had a runny nose, everything that that he probably did that just kind of wasn't good, you know, and why does his father like him so much? Those things are hard for people to accept from us sometimes. And Joseph was in that place, and it really turned bad for him quickly. So he was sold into slavery, right? He was given the dreams, feeling great, like we always do when we get a blessing, we get a word, confident and blessed. Soon after that, he was hit. It was in a very difficult situation, right? But you know, God knows. For some reason, He knows, and this is tough for us. God knows we need those difficult places. He knows that we need even those valleys. Why do we need those things? Because those are things that make us stronger and make us ready when the time comes. Right? There's one last thing I just want to mention, and then I'll see if you guys have any last comments on this, and then we'll wrap up. But you guys like to watch like you know, the Animal Planet, Discovery, National Geographic, all these things about wildlife, Africa and safari and all these things. You guys like to watch that. I used to watch it. I still do sometimes. Now, here's the scenario about a giraffe. When a mother giraffe is pregnant with a baby and they're about to give birth to a baby giraffe, the mother, they won't lie down. They won't lie down on the ground to have a child or have a giraffe, or whatever you call it, a baby giraffe, right? So how many know that giraffes are very tall animals? I did a little research. Looks like their legs are about 6 feet long, just their legs. That's not everything else, but they're just from the ground up, their legs are like average 6 feet long. So that would be a long drop to the ground, wouldn't it? So you got a pregnant giraffe. She finally is going into labor, and the baby giraffe is born. The baby drops all the way to the ground. The baby will lie motionless for a few minutes, just lay on the ground. And then, you know, what will happen is, this is crazy. I didn't know this. The mother will actually kick the baby giraffe hard, like not just soft nudge, like kick it and boot it like up in the air. Give it a good swift kick. Why? She kicks it because it startles the baby. It gets him moving. It gets him shaking. It gets him trying to do something. And finally, this little giraffe that can't hardly hold himself up will struggle and work his way up and stand up on his feet. All good, right? Look, it's standing up. And then you know what will happen is the mother giraffe will kick the giraffe again, knock him down again. What kind of mother would do that? And then this giraffe would have to do that all over again. Struggle to stand back up and get back. The mother giraffe will do that. And it seems very harsh, but why? So this giraffe will remember how to get up. You got to remember how to get up, right? Because you know what? She wants it to remember how to get up, because in the wild, you know, if it didn't learn to get up and move and to be able to withstand quickly and struggle, even though she's pushing it back down, the predator will come and pick it off. Sometimes we don't understand why we're in the waiting for the waymaker. And we're going to talk about Joseph some more late, next week, but he had to wait his time. And just like a baby giraffe that got kicked, he got kicked. And we know the story. You guys really said all of it, but we're going to get to it some more next week. But I want you to remember, as we close out, we often are put in places where we have to trust God when it seems cruel, when it seems like it's not fair, and that, he doesn't even care, or he's just playing with us, or he's just kicking us back down. But what if he's just trying to make us stronger so that we'll be ready when the time comes, when we finally get to that place? We are going to be motivated and ready to take on, to be blessed. Amen. God knows what he's doing. He does. And, this story gives us a foreshadow. It gives us Joseph's dreams in the beginning. It doesn't make sense till later on. Like, oh, I see. But if you go through the story of Joseph, you can see, the pitfalls and sold into slavery, and then all these, people turning their back on him and lying on him, and getting in prison, getting up and working himself up to leadership, and then getting knocked back down, and all of those things, like in the waiting for the waymaker. He's still that guy with the coat. He's still got those coats, but it doesn't look like it there. So we're going to get into that next week. We're going to talk some more about our buddy Joseph, and we're going to get you guys talking some more. And does anybody have anything they want to add? I'm going to close up, get you guys ready for tomorrow. Long day. But tomorrow's Thursday. I like Thursday. So yeah. Nobody's got anything to share. Wow. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's have a word of prayer. Thank you so much for listening and actually